Hi there, I'm Ahsan and you're watching me on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn Live. And today we are going to talk about signs of emotional neglect in marriage and how to deal with it. When we say emotional neglect, then the term emotional neglect is usually used for the parent-child relationship, but we can also use it for the romantic and matrimonial relationships as well. Hey Tammy, and when we say emotional neglect in marriage, then when you are going through the whole process of emotional neglect, then it is that difficult to recognize that you are being abused or you are being the victim because the whole situation is very complicated. There are some signs that helps you to know that you are being neglected in the relationship. Some of those signs are like your partner gives you the cold shoulder. He doesn't talk to you. You feel left out in the relationship, and you are in the bed with your partner, uh, but you feel alone, and you can't be your true self in the relationship. You can't afford to be open your heart to your partner, and that's how. These are some of the signs of uh, in a relationship that helps you to know that you are being neglected, emotionally neglected in the relationship. And now, when it comes to how to deal with it, there's no certain way. There's no. It is better if you consult the professional, or if you are doing it by yourself, then you have to be patient because it's not going to be fixed overnight, and you have to find out the cause of it, the root cause of it. Once you do, then you would be able to. You have to know that whether it's a temporary thing or it's a permanent thing. It's a if it is a temporary thing, then it could be because your partner is busy and he is mentally occupied. That's why he is giving you a cold shoulder. And if he is, uh, he is, he is not busy, but he is doing it over time, and there's a pattern there, then you have to be cautious. And there are many other ways. And we are going to have a roundtable discussion, and my guests are Paul. He has joined us from Iceland, and Melissa Amy, she has joined us from New York. How are you guys?
Good. I just want to clarify. I'm in New Jersey.
Okay, okay.
I do because I don't like to say New York because I'm not technically in New York, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm near New
Yeah.
York. I'm about 5 minutes from New York. So in
Mm-hmm.
all right. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, no. Okay, no problem. And those of the hey Tammy and other people who just join us, please do share it out, and so more people could join us. So I must say, you look good, Paul.
Thank
You
you.
look
I did
very
have my hair
active,
dyed again.
and Melissa, you also look good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, and emotional neglect in the marriage, signs of it. I'm going to start with you, Melissa. Yeah, what do you think? What is the most common sign in the relationship when you are being neglected?
I would say it depends. I don't think there's a cookie cutter
Mm,
sign necessarily. It depends on the couple. I
mm,
would say, a change of behavior. That would be something for me because maybe there are probably some marriages where they've always been emotionally disconnected. But I would say a change in normal patterns or behavior. That would be something for me to think of, emotional neglect, changing that behavior and pulling back more.
if it is a change in behavior, what are those? What could be the examples of it?
Um, well, yeah, there's, maybe even changing your appearance all of a sudden. but not in like a healthy way, not in a self-love way, more of sorry, I'm getting used to the way the camera is right now. Um, in a way that changing your appearance, but not for yourself, like not for self-love, is more to seeming to impress an external, something externally, like impressing another person. Another sign could be just not coming to bed at a certain time. I would say, if let's say if you have a pattern of going to bed at a certain time, now all of a sudden this person isn't coming to bed at that time, but you're
And
still. I mean, I still would say that you still need to investigate it, because it doesn't mean someone might just be interested in something. So you don't just assume one thing leads to another. You're paying attention to signs. That's what you're doing. You're paying attention to signs.
yeah, and one of those signs is also that you feel the partner cuts you out in many things. Like you plan something, okay, I've been busy, I don't have time. Does it fall in the category of behavior?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that you're not a priority. That's showing signs. You're looking for sign, like not looking, but you're observing. I would say you're observing that signs are off.
Hmm.
So that would be one of them. Yes, there could be many. It's just a disturbance. You're noticing a
Mhm.
disturbance.
And those signs may vary from couple to couple, relation to relationship. And
Correct.
Paul, what do you think? What should be the most common and obvious signs of it that is observable?
I totally agree with Melissa. It's the obvious sign that um, you usually joined by going to bed together. Basically, I mean that's how. I mean, I lived with a guy for 8 years, and it was a pretty fixed pattern. Although I never did the homework, I never realized. I mean, we sort of knew each other, what we wanted to get out of the relationship. We wanted to have a second home somewhere, so we were sort of joined in that venture of looking for a second home. We did do things together. I mean, I he had been suffering from anxiety, and I pulled him out of that. I mean, he told me as much, and certainly he was traveling to Vienna and Denmark and flying domestically in Iceland, which he had not been able to do for years. When I came into his life, so I was sort of making things happen in the beginning, and but having said that, I was sort of waiting for him to let me know what was his input into it. Like, yes, he had all sorts of ideas, but he didn't really show. Well, he didn't have the initiative to point things out. We did many things together, but sometimes I felt I was a bit bossy because I had a tendency to intercept and you know take charge, if you like. So, and that made me insecure, but at the same time, yeah, still
Uh,
waiting for him to show us initiative.
Hmm, okay. And while you are, I think uh, uh, the thing I have observed in your relationship, Paul, may I say something? May I pass a comment about it?
Yes, of course.
Okay. And the thing I observed, the signs I've observed in of your relationship with your partner. I think he was going out and he was coming back. Then he was out. There are things you don't know about him. You
Hmm.
don't feel uh, he was cutting you out in many things, like. It was one example that of using the cards. Okay, no problem. And
Hmm.
but there are many things, many instances like he has to talk to his family. Then he would go out. uh, just like
Yes.
those things.
Mm.
He doesn't feel comfortable around you while talking to his friends and family.
No, because I don't exist towards them. So he finds it very difficult to unite those two worlds. And this is a closet thing that it's very difficult to explain that to normal heterosexual people
Mm,
because you'll never understand this situation. And
mm,
it's a process, definitely. And it will go either way. It will either mend itself with an effort from both parties, not only one. I have to show some distance as well. He needs free time to talk to his family, obviously, just as I
yeah,
need time to talk to my friends and family when I care to do that. So, but it's very difficult to explain to people that haven't gone through this that this process of stepping from one world to another, it's not easy.
yes. And Melissa, any comments on it?
Yes, I do have a comment. I do feel like since 220, I felt more of a coming out. I felt experienced more of a coming out
Mm,
myself. So it almost every time I would feel something, I would think of how gay people might have felt coming out. Because I feel that way now about families and relationships. I wouldn't want, like, if I was dating somebody, I don't necessarily want to meet their family. I got to be honest with you. You know, like, I've already am estranged from my family. So it would depend on the person. You know, like, I'm very careful about who's in my circle and who I surround myself with. Not that I'd say I wouldn't meet somebody, but looking not that I say I don't want to meet them, but I have like pretty strong boundaries, and um, I guess it maybe the same way of acceptance. It
mm,
seems like those same issues are like there now
yes.
for more people. That's what I'm sensing.
Mm,
Like
I
I feel
think
it too now. I feel it too now.
I think it depends also. It also depends upon the relationship. For instance, I'm dating someone, and she has a very close and intimate relationship with her family. Then she wants me to meet them. It depends on. Some people have a very intimate relationships with their families, and some don't. And those who do have intimate relationships, so it's a big thing for them. And those who don't, it's not a big deal.
Well,
Isn't it the case, Melissa?
it depends if the family's toxic or, I
Yeah.
think people who've done deep shadow work have set boundaries in their life. So I would be looking for that in another person to see what kind of boundaries they have and the family dynamic, because I'm not going to, I'm at a stage in my life where I'm not going to entertain things that do not, I don't know, feel good to me or feel like they're healthy.
mm,
So that's, that is a hard situation because these are all things that I'm thinking about, if I ever did date, I don't know, like, 'cause I don't know if I'd want to just, every Sunday we're going over the family's house, the parents' house. No, like, no,
no,
like that doesn't
no,
sound.
never,
Uh,
So
no.
you have to find somebody who has the same, feels the same way you do. And,
yeah.
some people are very close to their family. And even if that family could be
Mm,
toxic, they're still
yes.
around it. I don't want to be around that. I don't want to
Mm,
engage in it. So that's why you have to be really careful who you date and you need to take time to get to know them,
mm,
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 Don't rush
yes.
into anything.
Yes. And Paul, out of all of the signs, I think the most obvious and the most, I think the most, the main, one of the main signs is that you don't feel, you can't be your true self to your partner. You don't feel comfortable sharing your thoughts, your ideas, your views with your partner.
Well, to me, it was very easy.
Hmm.
I mean, my ex,
You were bossy.
the 8 year guy, I call him the 8 year guy. Yeah,
Mhm.
there was a 6.5 year guy, and then the 8 year guy, and the 8-year guy, he was sort of half closeted. So people up north were not supposed to know about me. People in Reykjavik were supposed to know about me in his circle. So he was sort of half out of the closet. And I found it a bit interesting and slightly funny, but it was a challenge. The problem with me is that I've always been aware that relationships mean hard work, a lot of work, and a lot of discipline. And you have to, and it works both ways. I've said this before that, like with my last one, he needed to go to Italy to meet his family because he was really trying to mend hurtful feelings between him and his mother because she had an affair behind his father's back before he actually died from a heart attack when he was 28. So he lost his father then. That is a trauma in itself. And then, of course, the problem that his mother was suddenly with another man a week after the funeral. And this is a very shocking
Wow.
experience.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and then he heard that there had been an item behind his father's back for years before his father died. So this is a very problematic. This is why I cut him some slack, and I allowed him to have this time to go to Italy, and I encouraged him to go and try to mend things with his mother. That was 2 years ago. So I was all in it. I realized that I was, in my opinion, I was trying to help him mend his wounds. So for me, it was a challenge, and I liked the challenge. And I also felt intrigued that he was a year, I mean, last year, he was a year younger than I was when I came out. So I could so strongly relate to his situation. And my mother was actually the first one I told that I was gay, and that was a year after my 37th birthday. So I see the resemblance there. And so to me, it's basically challenge. And you could say whatever you want about closeted life, but it's part of human nature. And it's a process, and you have to take the step on your own, in your own time, when you're ready. Not when others are ready to listen to it, but when you're ready to tell it. It's a very private thing. It doesn't get much more private than taking that step. So this is why, to me, this is basically a challenge, and we're actually planning to go to Sicily in a few weeks' time, and he's going to meet his family, and I'm going to look for a flat. I would like to settle down there. And
You're thinking Sicily now?
yes.
Oh, this is new.
It is new, and everybody in Iceland thinks I'm going to move to Spain, and I let them think of that because they can talk all they want about, and then I'm going to give them that surprise. And so, but I'm sort of planning this trip in my mind, and I enjoy it because it's a challenge. I'm going into the lions, the wolf's lair, I'm going into his area.
What do you think about this? That you can't be your true self to your partner.
I think of that. I think of that as a mask and a closet. If you think of it like in the closet, it's a mask. Mm. So and a lot of people, most people have layers of masks. So I think the more unhappy you are is how much, how tightly you're wearing the mask or how many masks you're wearing. So the purpose in life is to take the masks off because the mask will taking off the mask will bring you fulfillment. I don't know if that makes sense to people. I don't know if that makes sense to people.
It does make
sense.
So
it's being true to yourself.
Yeah.
Being true to yourself.
I think taking mask off in the relationship, that's why people get into the relationship. You have to be, you have to know each other. You have to pull your mask and your partner also pull his or her mask in order to know each other.
Right.
To be your true self. If you still have to wear masks and you can't be your true self, then what's the point of being in the relationship? And
Correct.
people are in the relationship for years and they don't feel comfortable pulling off their mask.
To themselves first. They don't
Yeah.
even feel comfortable letting it out themselves. And I feel that with people always they keep their mask on when you're first dating, but then you really don't know the person.
Yeah.
So by the time they take the mask, now you're both miserable because you weren't yourselves in the beginning. So it's just easier to be yourself because you want someone to be attracted to you for yourself. It's not makeup or something like, you're not attracted to something that's false. Like, I think of someone that like a gorgeous face that's made up a certain way, and then you take it off and they look completely different underneath it.
Yes. And
So
I follow a very good strategy. My strategy is to be myself, just like I do very sometimes childish things, and I try to be myself. And I think you have to do this. You don't know because I follow the reason I follow this strategy of being myself. If the person likes it, okay, he knows that who I am really am, the real me, not the person that I want to be. Okay, people see me on the camera, pictures. Okay, this is different. But when I go and talk to the person, then I do many childish things, giggling and teasing person, that sort of thing, and accept me who I am. Uh, and if you don't, then the reason I follow this strategy is because once I be myself, then the other person would feel comfortable around me. Then it's an opportunity for the other person to be open up.
correct. And I feel that too. I can tell when someone's not being themselves, and I really don't want to be around it. It really feels like off-putting to me. I could just,
Yeah.
if they're not being real, if I'm talking to a mask, it feels uncomfortable. It's
Mm,
so
mm.
that's why I probably don't, like I find small talk a mask, those
Yes,
This
kind of
small
is
things.
it's
talks a mask.
a mask. Yes, of course it is. Yeah.
And
And
I don't
But the
think
how
it
thing
do you
can.
is,
think?
I'm sorry.
no,
Please do
the
continue.
thing is that you can be yourself even if things are not quite as you want them to be. And
Right.
yes, you are definitely yourself. And I've always I've been myself. I mean, and most of my exes have found it quite funny how different I've been from them. Like the 80-year guy, he said that, I can have a conversation about anything in the book with anyone without much effort because that's the way I'm built or put together. So it's my mindset is like, I can talk about airplanes or the airline business, and then bird watching and keeping pets or whatever. I know exactly what time it is in Sydney, Australia, when I'm in
Mm.
Iceland. It's
What time
really
is it in my part of the world?
it's just after 6, I think. It's after
Yeah,
6. And the thing is,
how
this is
crazy
the
is
way
that?
my brain is put together. I mean, I can, and this is why I'm ready to go to Sicily with him into his own territory, the lion's den. And I don't care if I meet some of I'm suspecting I will bump into his sister, probably by accident. But we've already had this conversation that I have decided that he's going to give them a handmade chocolate box from Iceland, one for his sister and one for his mother, because that's what you do for your family in my part of the world. So I'm going to totally be myself. In a way, I'm sort of teaching him how to be um, I don't know, civilized, probably.
Yes,
You bring your family
man.
nice things from the country you have been living in. That's what you do to your family. If you're actually visiting them anyway. So, and he sort of looks at me and he finds that weird, but I'm definitely myself. And then I want him to go off and meet them and all that. But I'm definitely going to build my own reality there. And he needs to help me. We had this discussion before. He needs to help me settle down and then he can decide what he wants to do. Because I'm going to be myself there.
Mhm. And Melissa, one of the other sign is you are with the person. I think it's related to the mask. You are in the person, but you don't know him. You feel still lonely. Yeah, you are in the bed, but you feel lonely.
Well, there could be many reasons for that. I don't necessarily feel like it has to be a good or bad guy. It's just that I don't know why we consider relationships. I was thinking when Pal was speaking about it's a lot of work for a relationship. It's arduous. Like it sounded like almost rolling that boulder up. The philosopher rolls the boulder up to the top of the hill, and then it rolls back down on him. And I was thinking of passion, and I was thinking, when I think of what I do every day, researching is my passion, learning is my passion. Is it hard work? Yeah, it's hard work, but I love doing it. So I think the same applies to a relationship. You should be in it because you feel fulfilled by it. You should be in it because it makes you grow as a person. Why do we have this feeling that, well, this is the way we've always done it? So you have to stay 30 years in a situation where you don't have anything in common, because this is a contract, and I'm not saying that for everybody, some people can, I think most of the couples that I'm around are unconscious and their relationship's unconscious. So it's different for many of us who are, have done our inner work. We're looking around us, and we have a bar set for the relationships that we're in, and what we want to do in every aspect of our life. We're studying every day. We're into art. We're into so many things, or all our passions we're following right now, and the relationship is also part of that. And I don't think that there should be different rules when it comes to a relationship compared to everything else. It should be the same passion. Are you fulfilled by it? Are you growing as a person from this relationship? All relationships,
Yeah.
I think
Yes.
it all comes back to the same thing. First of all, you have to know yourself. Once you know yourself, the real self, what you want, and what you are looking for in the relationship, then you won't have any problem uh, of being self, of your being your true self to the other person.
because what doesn't feel good. You're in touch with things. What's off, what's not flowing right, and you have to work on it. You're not just going to let it be. And what happens if it's not working? Then what are you going to do? You're just going to keep doing it? That doesn't make sense to me either.
So,
Not
so
either. I'm sorry.
what is the cause of it? I think society, the culture in which we grow up, it teaches us to put on the mask because we can't
Yes.
afford to be open up to everyone.
Yeah. I think
That's
we
complicated. Go.
It's like I
Pal
just
first.
realized
now
it's a very difficult
we
question.
were also brought up in a certain way. So I think we're heavily marked by that upbringing. We have been groomed into a certain role, and we have our role models, whether we want to admit it or not. Subconsciously, we follow certain traits in one of our parents, if not both, and probably, or maybe a grandfather or grandmother. So we are pretty much programmed into a certain role, I think. And you know, I know that much about myself, that I am the caretaker, and I'm used to taking charge of things, and I'm ready to shoulder responsibility and sink or swim with that decision. And it's I don't feel like, whenever I question, I go over it time and time again. If a relationship fails, what did I do wrong? I start with my own backyard and try to find out what did I do. And little by little, I realized that I was attributing to its demise. Subconsciously, I may have been sabotaging it for a while because it wasn't doing anything for me. So I always failed to go into that victim mentality that he left me. Yes, he left me, but there was a reason for that. And I was
True.
actually contributing to it.
Yes, it's healthy. That's healthy to do self-reflection, because it is true. There's always two people. And I think we're so polarized in relationships that there always has to be a bad guy and a good guy. That's not the case. That's binary thinking. And it is both people in the relationship should be growing. Both people should care that the other one's growing.
Yeah.
And evolving and
yeah. It doesn't have to be complicated. It should be simple.
Yeah.
It should be, you both, you are supposed to feel comfortable in the relationship. If you have to put on your mask, you can't be your true self, and you still are in the relationship, then I think you are being dishonest to yourself. And now, next to the second part of this question, how to deal with it when you are being emotionally neglected. You have found those signs in the relationship, and you have found the pattern in the relationship that you are being neglected. Now, how to deal with it, Melissa?
Well, you said the signs. Yes, you want to observe. You're observing, and then you're trying to communicate that, or trying to figure out what's going on. What are the origins of this? What are the origins of this? You're not just looking at their neglect. Why are they neglecting you? What kind of disconnect? It could be many things to many different couples, how they handle it. So you need to find that out first, and it really is individual to your relationship. It's not like a horoscope today where you look in, you say, okay, I'm Aquarian, you go look in a general horoscope and think you're going to have a prediction. The same thing about picking one sign, this means this. No, not necessarily. What are the origins? You have to figure out the origins and then work on it. And, maybe to me, any kind of, I don't want to say not chaos or any kind of disruption. A disruption is showing you there's a problem. It's showing you there's a problem. So you need to figure out what is the problem, and is it fixable, or can you change from it? But it's showing you something in all aspects of your life. That kind of disruption is showing you something.
Paul, investigating the exact cause of the problem, I think it seems like a good step, and you should do it.
Well, half the time you don't know the cause because you're observing, as Melissa says, you're observing the other guy, and you're collecting information about what's going on, and you need to give it time, and you need to sort of give that partner time to, maybe it's the phase he's going through or whatever, but he needs to be catapulting back at some point. And you feel it inside of you when it's abnormally long time that he's been distant. So, and then you're going to have to be man enough to ask him what is really going on. You just have to ask him straight up,
And I do believe we mostly make assumptions, I would apply it to the same way when you research something, that if you have a predetermined opinion, or you have your own belief before even observing, you're going to come to a certain conclusion. So observing, means you're observing, and you have to not go in with a certain, well, this means this happened. No, it doesn't necessarily. You're making assumptions. You're making assumptions.
And I was going to the same point. Okay, please do continue, Paul.
No, it's funny when you say that, these assumptions, and even when the other guy is distant, it never enters my mind that he's with somebody else. It's never that. It must be something else. I've never. It's never been that thing. It's more like partying with people, or and I'm not fun enough to be out and about in the bars. So
I would also like to add, it's important to look into patterns, If you're in relationship after relationship after relationship, and they're all cheaters, the problem isn't the other people. So you have to look for patterns in relationships that you see. Because if you see patterns, it's something you're doing or contributing to the pattern. So you have to find that origin too.
It could be the and I think while investigating it and finding out the exact cause of it, one of the things that you should know that it's a possibility that your partner is has already got enough in his or her plate, and he is so much occupied with the work and he doesn't have time. You have to understand his predicament in order to uh, to find out the exact cause of it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because once you don't understand his or her position, then you won't find the exact cause of it. You're just assuming things, and perhaps he is busy. He is occupied with so many things. He has got so much pressure on him or her, and you're just assuming he is not. How could he possibly give you the time if he is so much occupied with so many things under a lot of pressure?
But he needs to inform you what he's doing.
Yeah,
Isn't that basic? I mean,
if even if he is informing you, but you are not ready to listen to him.
I also think it should be a safe place to say something without, if someone, there's a difference between someone saying their truth and that their intention is bad. People should be able to say what they're feeling, and it doesn't mean their intention's bad. They're telling you how they feel. So I think people think that's an attack when it's not an attack. They're telling you how they feel. And you might not just like to hear how they feel. It might not be pleasing to hear how they feel, but that doesn't mean their intention's bad by saying it.
It reminds me another thing, Melissa. As I said, you are not ready to listen. Sometimes you see the things, but you are not ready to accept those things.
Right.
Because, yeah, some people do that. You tell them, but they don't listen to you. They just keep repeating the things that they have observed or they have assumed in their mind. They think their assumption is correct than the reality.
Right.
Paul?
yeah, I don't like assumptions. I just don't
Okay.
like them because it's a yes, you're still probably it takes years to get to know a person. It doesn't, the dating process. I mean, whatever. It's basically you're supposed to get to know that person in 2 or 3 months, which is not reality. We know that, and we don't get to know a person. Some people say you won't get to know him until you start living with them, and then you start living with him, and you learn more about yourself than your partner.
Yes,
Nobody tells you that.
yes,
You just discover it yourself, that you're actually getting to know yourself rather than your partner. And you're so much into that trying to understand yourself. I mean, thank God for that, because that is where you have to start. In that situation, certainly in living with somebody that you've known for, less than 6 months or whatever, and you're getting to know yourself, which you didn't bargain for. And then, of course, some people say, oh, the first trip together abroad, a week in Paris together, that's a very trying thing for a relationship or what, and I tried that too. That was a piece of cake. I didn't care. I mean, there was nothing to that. I always went abroad to Paris, Berlin, London, Vienna, and it was it was very effortless. So that was not trying, but the trying bit was the everyday,
I would say the trying could be the everyday, because all areas of your life you're not doing things that make you happy or make you feel fulfilled. So that's a lot of pressure to put on a relationship when the other areas of your life aren't fulfilled. So it's your job to fulfill all the areas of your life, and it shouldn't be an issue in with who you share a relationship with, because that you should have already, that, and you're not going to choose somebody who's going to bring you baggage. And I don't want someone's baggage from the relationship before,
Yeah.
Because that's why I'm doing my work. I'm not healing you. I don't want to fix you. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be your nurse. I
Mm.
don't. I want to grow together. I want to grow and that, have a good exchange. It's a relationship like any other relationship. So yeah, I think that's how we've always been led to believe that relationships should be so hard and arduous. And, you're in it for the long haul. No, that's a horrible way to view a relationship. Horrible way to view a relationship. And if you're worried about whether they're using you or not, you're in the
Mhm.
wrong relationship, because these questions
Yeah.
shouldn't even come up.
Mm.
That's just my
Yeah.
opinion. I've only woken up, like really did a lot of the work over the past couple years. So I haven't tested it out yet completely. But that's how I'm leaning, I'm leaning all of that.
I think
And I feel
a
like other people are
relationship.
too.
I think
I'm sorry.
when you define relationship, the good relationship, it should just like a flow that you just move things.
Yeah.
Things are just
Yes.
happening and step by step unfolding it. It shouldn't be like you don't have to plan things. It's just a meeting of minds. And
It's,
I think when you are in the right track, then things just keep on flowing.
right. You don't
Uh,
worry
I
about
and
what the next step is that way. You don't worry
yeah,
about the next step because you're doing the steps as they come along. And the steps are in
yeah.
all areas of your life. The steps are not just the relationship or that you
No,
want a
no, no,
relationship.
no.
The steps are then the universe will put things into your life.
yeah.
I
Paul
just, I
wants to
just
add.
love, I love the challenge. I love the challenge, and I love to see. I love to observe, like Melissa point. I mean, it's the greatest part of living with somebody is to observe and the reaction and how things sort of evolve. And I just love the challenge. You're in a relationship. You know what's ahead of you. There are many obstacles, obviously, within any relationship, whether you admit it or not. And you have to face yourself, you have to face your partner, you have to face the situation, but you don't do it alone. You never do that alone because then you're isolating yourself. And that
I feel
ends badly.
I do feel like there could be issues with that come up, and these are just life and transition issues where maybe the person you're with has one passion, and you have another passion, and that could even lead a person to have to relocate for their passion because you know if you feel like you're destined to do something, you might have to relocate. Like there's a lot of things you may have to do, and that could put stress on a relationship too. So there's many factors. There's many factors.
And
Yes,
while
and
Melissa,
you
while
have to have this. Yeah, you have to have this discussion about your future, and you have to know what you're getting into, and you have to have the plan for yourself. This is about you. It's not about the other guy or the in-laws or anyone else. Certainly not your own family because you're leaving them
Right.
behind. So it's about what you want out of life, and
Right. Exactly.
this
and
discussion about the future is, what do I want? And I was able to do that, and I said, yeah, I want to move to Sicily. I want to take my stuff with me. And then yes, and if I get work in England or Ireland, will you come with me? And I said no. Then you're on your own. I'm not going to travel Europe with my stuff to follow you. I'm settling down in one place, make a home, because I'm at that point in my life where I need tranquility. I don't want the excitement of moving from one country to another because you don't feel fulfilled anywhere. I mean, that's your
yeah,
problem.
yeah. You just have to know yourself, what you want, and where you want to be.
So now he
And you have
knows.
done the inner
Now he
work. You
knows.
have done the inner work. And
He knows that
Melissa,
if he wants to leave the country, he's going to be alone.
yeah. And Melissa, while investigating the exact cause of it, one of the things that you should know that has your relationship always been like this, or is it happening just recently? Because many people just get into the relationship and they don't know what they are doing it, and they just put on their mask throughout their life, and at the end of it, they're just blaming on each other. And you just have to know whether your relationship has always been like this, or it's a new thing, or it's a recent development.
Yes, that is really important because that would show, a disruption. So that goes back to the disruption. So if it's been on a pattern, and then you might just wake up one day and be like, well, I noticed, yeah, it's always been like this, and I'm not happy with it. So either it's going to change, either you're going to continue doing it and then do really toxic behaviors because you're unhappy, and you're going to torture everybody around you, or you're gonna try to change it, like try to work on it, or you're gonna be like, okay, we're gonna try and work apart. Those are really the three things that happen, and in and of itself, they're not all bad, and it's what you decide is right for you, because what you decide is right for you may be different than somebody else. So even when it comes to betrayal or something like that, how you would handle it may be different than how somebody would handle it, and you don't know how you would handle it until you go through it. So you can make a ton of assumptions of how you deal with things, but until you live it, you're not going to know. Then you're just judging somebody else.
This is brilliant. This is a brilliant point, because you have to go through. I have no idea how I would react.
Can I give one example? Is I was a therapist for many, many years, and I work with children, and I dealt with grief. And I really didn't understand grief until I went through a traumatic grief experience. Then I could understand, I could really question the treatment I was being taught, and how to work with children. But then when my children went through a trauma, I felt differently about, they liked exposure. They liked the exposure technique over and over again. I didn't care for that because I went through it, because I lived it. I'm like, I don't need to be exposed to something that's so traumatic when I already just went through it, and then you're going to do it to a child. It didn't make any sense to me. But I had to know that from experience. I really did. I wouldn't have known it any other way. And even when it comes to betrayal, anybody can say how they'd handle betrayal, but you'd have to be you're not going to know until you go through it, and you have to make the best decision in your environment too.
Yes. Yes.
And there's many kinds of betrayal, so yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And Paul, you have something is wrong in the relationship, and you have found the cause of it. Now you're working on it, and you have realized you have done everything, and you are being honest. You are working on. You're planning to talk to your partner. You are ready to accept your mistakes, but sometimes it just doesn't work. The spark isn't there in the relationship. It's just gone.
Yes, I remember when I usually realize when the relationship is dying about 4 or 5 months before they dump me. So I can't pretend that it came out of the blue. It didn't. And when I go carefully over that time, when I decided that it's the relationship is on a ventilator, I realized that then I start to sabotage it. That's my way of saying I don't like this anymore. I don't like, that this relationship is dying, and I try to sort of kill it, really. I sabotage it. I clearly do that. And it's not by sleeping around or anything. It's just not stopping trying. I just stop trying. I don't make any effort. And it's not as if because usually they move into me. So it is sort of my home, basically. So I retreat. And
It's your
obviously,
treat.
I mean, after 2 months, they start sleeping in another room, and it's a process. It's a grieving process as well, and we're both grieving, and then he moves out. So it's a long process of working through it, and but you definitely know what's happening months before it sort of becomes absolute.
Melissa?
I was thinking when you were saying that the grieving process, and it's complicated. I recently lost my dog, and I know, I guess it depends on the person, but we had him for like 14 years. And it was a process, you almost have to go through things like you remember yourself you remember yourself having the dog and all the things you did with the dog, and you're like, wow, this is a big closure time. So it's that same grieving process with everything, and that includes a relationship. It even includes friendships. It includes, how about even when you leave a job, when you know the same thing is like as it is in a relationship, when you know that you're like, I'm not going to be at this job much longer. I just know it. I just know it. And you do the same thing. You pull back. You're not invested. So it's the same thing.
It's
right?
the same thing. It's exactly the same thing. I did some sabotaging at work as well.
Right.
I hated it. And I
You're not
told people I
invested.
hated them. I was upfront. I was certainly not wearing a mask at work. I said, I like the patients, but I hate you. I
Yes.
hated my coworker. I hate your ideas about forcing people to do this and that. This is nonsense. This is about
Just
your
break the
ego.
bubble.
We're looking after other people, and you think it's about your personal ego at work. I was really rough. And I know I was sabotaging the work environment. Of course I was, at least I was standing by myself. And I said, I don't like this workplace anymore.
Yeah.
I've been here 15 years. And this is rubbish to me. I don't like working anymore. And I said it. So I was certainly not wearing a mask there. But you
Yeah,
could
just
claim I was self-sabotaging, you
yeah.
know.
You have realized the pattern, to recognize the pattern, things are happening in the flow, and the person is living in the other room, and you just break the bubble. The hell with it.
I think the
You break.
lockdown, I think during the lockdown, a lot of people have seen it is affecting relationships, but they're seeing a lot of areas in their life where they're not happy. And then they see areas that they want to increase more. Like a lot of people are, cooking more. They're more in touch with things that aren't so materialistic. That's what I've seen. So they're getting more enjoyment in nature. Even going back decades. It's like a retro thing going on where people are connecting to more of the simpler things or what makes them happy. And, I think you're probably unhappy in your job. I know for my job, I wasn't happy way before the lockdown. I was unhappy and I'm like, wow, I don't feel fulfilled doing this anymore. This doesn't feel right to me. And you go through autopilot in your life and all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, how did I go through autopilot? Like imagine going back and reliving the last decade the way you were. Like if you had to go, but you never could do it. I can't do it one more day. I can't do it one more minute. So I think we're kind of like enough. We want to live. We want to feel good. We want to have passion in what we're doing in life in general. So it's the same thing with our relationships, the same thing with relationships that we're like, I'm not doing this if it's not passionate. It doesn't feel good to me. This is insane. Who's telling me I have to do this? Where did I sign on that? That I'm a slave to this relationship. That doesn't make any sense. Or friendships or anything, or a job, anything, It's age of Aquarius, so like everybody's this is normal, what we're going through. It's questioning everything.
I think so, yeah.
You don't have to accept the new normal.
No.
It's the thing. Yeah, you have to accept the things they are, not the new way of things. No, it's not a new type of love. It simple means the things are just plain and simple. That the spark isn't there anymore. You just have to accept the fact.
And we're learning so much about the lies in our culture and what's going on with the transgenderism and how they're using that for transhumanism, in that way, the transgenderism. Like there's a lot of dark things going on behind the scenes. And then just the division between the female and males and all these different divisions are having. That's all coming to a head. So part of that, and then you're thinking about the law and the contracts and marriage and how the family court system is so toxic. So it's everything all at once we're looking at, and that's hard because we're trying to make our own way through it and still have ethics and still have principles and still have good intentions and still not to make it some hedonistic crazy thing, but I'm trying to bring my principles to what's going on and question everything and like what feels right for me,
Yeah.
So it's confusing. It's not easy for people to do, and you're not going to know it. You have to do it step by step. There's no map because we're kind of new doing this. all of us are new doing this, like really questioning things.
It's a step-by-step process, and you have to be patient with it. It's not going to happen overnight. If things are just off, then it's going to take time. Emotional neglect is a very complicated thing, and it's very difficult to fix
Yes.
in the relationship. If it requires to consult with a professional, with a therapist, and with a psychologist, yeah, then you should do it, because uh, the professional help is more, I think, more a valid thing than credible thing, the credible valid step than you trying to do, uh, because you don't know what is happening, and you
Mhm.
should hire someone to figure out things for you.
For me, I never needed, like, I coming from, I'm a therapist, I
Yeah,
am not practicing now, but like, I don't always feel like you even need one. If
No.
you follow the right, because the main thing is you want to build your intuition up, that you make better choices. And a lot of this work is your work. You don't even, and today with finances not being great, I don't even believe many people need a therapist. I believe they can
yeah,
find out a lot on there. There's enough online that you
yeah,
don't need. A lot of what I've learned on my own, not
yeah,
through school. So
yeah,
a
Mhm.
lot of your work you can do on your own, and not have to pay somebody, and we don't know what their
yeah,
bias is,
yeah,
not that you
yeah,
can't. I'm not saying not to, but always do your own too. Always do
yeah,
my work is, I do it on my own,
yeah.
and I
I
found it
think
much more fulfilling.
yeah. That's why I added the attribute that if you can figure out by yourself, then you have tried.
Right.
If you have to fight, if you can figure out by yourself the things that are happening, you are so observant enough, then you can do it by yourself.
And there
And
are life
all,
coaches too, and you can barter. You can barter
Mhm.
for
yeah,
it. There's life,
yeah,
that you give to service to somebody, and
and
like I
they'll
always think
give
for
you
my
some.
service, I could do a service, do an exchange that way.
Yeah,
But there's creative
yeah,
ways to get support. Very creative ways
yeah,
to get support,
yeah,
and we don't have to look at the same avenues as we have before. You
yeah,
Mhm.
know, there's a lot of support online too. There's a lot of
yeah,
support for people
yeah.
to get,
There are many.
to just have different ideas on things.
Yeah, there are many free
Yes.
groups as well. Free groups available to chat.
Yes.
The people who help you for no reason. The good
Mm.
people are out there. You just have to find it. And Paul, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, this is a very interesting point that Melissa brings up, and I totally agree with her on a personal level. However, there are two of us in this relationship. So I mean, both the 6.5-year-old,
Yeah,
ex and the 8-year-old ex, he sort of, both of them, I mentioned professional help because I wanted to save the relationship
yeah,
in both cases. And I want in order to give him the chance, because I was usually the one that I had been doing the professional work at the hospital. I had been in all sorts of situations where there was a problem with communication between family members and stuff. I mean, I was at the children's ward, the juvenile ward, whatever. It's all mental hospital, and I had to be in the center of it all. So I knew roughly, but I wanted to give my partner a chance to air his opinions on on me, on the relationship. So he was able to express himself in a neutral territory, if you like,
mhm,
professionally.
yeah,
They never did. They never wanted that. They said no thanks. So I was stuck with that. Yeah, I knew roughly what was going on. I knew roughly that it wouldn't last many months, but at least I tried to give them that way out of, at least if you want to be with me in this, trying to solve this, there is this option. And they
yeah,
said no, both of them.
yeah.
So that was the end of that.
So, Paul, uh, okay, you want to add some comment
Yeah,
on that?
I'd like to add, I would like to add something to that. When I first started doing my, I don't know if we had to do hours to become to become a
Mm.
therapist. I had to have supervision. Okay.
Hmm.
And my
Okay.
supervisor told me he wasn't, he did a lot of family work, and it's more in couple work. And, I still remember when I was working with him, and he said most couples come to see a therapist when it's too late. they get to the point where too much has happened and it's too late to really heal it. Another thing I want to say, like, what is your intentions for yourself? So I always say you stay true to yourself, everything else will fall in line. So you have to kind of think of like, what do you want for yourself? Ask yourself the hard questions and see whether this is going to fit or it's not going to fit. You can't make it fit. And, know when to leave the table when dinner isn't served anymore. You got, to not prolong suffering, like even when you think of an animal that's not healthy and you're watching it, don't continue to have, a relationship suffer. You're both suffering in it, and then think of to yourself, or, and there are cases where it does work. You can make it work, you can make it work, but there's both. Don't continue suffering because this is what you've done before. And, that's what I was thinking.
So, Paul, what are your final thoughts?
I think Melissa has actually said that for me, that you have to you have to know who you are and what you're about and what you want out of life in general, whether you're in a relationship or not. And this passion you have, we all have passions. And we have to let it grow. I mean, I have a passion to live in a warmer climate in my own home, in the same place, and yet being able to travel. And this is what I plan to do, with or without a partner. And trust me, I mean, yes, relationship come and go. I mean, it's been like that for many years. I mean, to me, it's not an issue. There's no shortage of guys anywhere. This is not about being alone or not. This is not about that. It's about what you want out of life. And if you're going to work at your own passion and what you want to do, I'm going to take, like, nobody understands, I'm going to take a heap of books with me.
That sounds excellent.
In all sorts of languages. Why are you taking books with you? Because it's going to be my home. I don't care if nobody reads them but me. Yeah, but you say, it's about 150 Icelandic books. Nobody's going to understand it. Yes, I am going to understand it. And I'm going to need to read Icelandic books wherever I live. So the same goes with so many other things. And I want a garden.
That sounds so exciting.
I want a small garden. I want a birthday pool. This is my passion. I want to be in harmony with my circumstances. And whether it's the man by my side or not.
Right.
I hate to say
No, you were so excited. You look so excited. Your face is glowing. Just talking about yourself and what makes you passionate. Your books. And I think that's amazing. So of course the next things are going to come to you because you're doing what you need to do for yourself.
I suspect that. Yes.
You have to make yourself happy. You have to make yourself happy.
Okay.
And I will never feel alone. I will get the company I want at any given time. It doesn't really matter. What matters is exactly as Melissa said, your passion. And if you're going to enjoy that, live in it.
No one else can make you happy unless yourself.
No, nobody else.
So what are your final thoughts, Melissa?
I'm trying to think what my final thoughts are now. I think we kind of covered it. I'm trying to see if I could summarize it up. I would like to leave it by, looking into your life. Again, what do you want? And then you don't have to do massive. I kind of look at it as like the masculine feminine principle, where you're doing passionate, you're half of it's the passion, what you want, where you want to live, like all the comfort, that passion, that creativity and passion. But the other part has to be practical, so you may want all these things now, but you're not set up for that yet. So not to be impulsive with your passion, but to balance both of them. And that may mean not running from something, taking steps, in all areas of your life, you're taking a step, and that's the same part when it comes to, you're applying the same thing in your career, where you want to be, all these things, you're just applying the same way to a relationship. And you finding your passion may already make you one step closer to a healthy, fulfilling relationship. It all should go together. That's ideally what it should be doing. You know, so as you're working on yourself, you're attracting that to you. You're not attracting a needy, dependent person who needs to be fixed that way.
No.
Because why would you work so hard to be that and then take steps back with somebody who's needy and hasn't worked on their stuff? I'm sorry. Go ahead. All right, that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, when you follow your passion, then you attract the like-minded person, the like-minded people towards you.
Correct.
For instance, you're an athletic person, you love exercising, walking, then follow your passion, go out, do something, the athletic work, and it's possible that you would attract the like-minded people. You would connect with the exercising, the athletes by doing the same thing.
Can I say one?
Yes, ma'am.
I just want
Yeah, please
to say
do.
what. It's important. It's really important to understand. You have to make sure you can't wear a mask with yourself. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you were saying activities, I feel like the one way you will not have a healthy relationship is if you do an activity to meet somebody. Okay.
No,
And at
no,
first you might feel that way, you know, because a lot of us were raised to think that we always have another part of us that someone has to complete us. It's all about relationships. So it's ingrained in us. So it's really important, and you might not feel it like when you first start doing it in your mind. You might still have like, oh, I'll get a relationship this way. Maybe I'll meet
no,
somebody here when you
no.
go. Work on that. You know, every time work, I say, no, you're good the way you are. You know, like you have to do that cognitive behavioral therapy to yourself. Like say, no, you're fine the way you are. You have you don't have expectations of that. Whatever happens, but you're having fun today, or you're doing this today. You know, because if you give that so much power, it actually works the opposite way, because you're coming at it with neediness, and you're not being true or authentic with your own intentions. You know, you don't want to come from a place of neediness. And people sense that too. They really do
Yeah,
sense it.
yeah. It all comes down to the same thing. You have to make yourself happy. No one else. Yeah, I think before doing anything, first of all, the thing you should do is to make yourself happy. Then follow the passion. And if
Like,
those passions they make you happy, then so be it.
and I would say, well, I'm sorry, the more needy, if I kept hearing that message about going somewhere to meet somebody, then I'd be like, you absolutely
No, no,
shouldn't
no,
meet somebody right now because you're
no,
desperate.
no.
You know,
Yeah,
you don't want the people smell, even with a business deal, people smell desperation.
yeah,
So that's definitely a time you don't want to come across meeting somebody. When you're
yeah.
you're in that vibration, when you're in that you don't want to meet people in that frequency.
You have to make a peace with yourself. You
Yes.
have to be happy with yourself. Then that you should go out. Or I think if you are peace with yourself, then things would keep on happening. It's just a flow, and you just have to believe in the process. And things happen in life. You just have to believe in it. And if you have any question, just leave it in the comment box below. I'll
All right.
answer it to you. Melissa would get back to you. Paul would get back to you as soon as he can. And and thank you. Have a good day, good afternoon, good evening, midnight, or wherever
Right.
you are in your part of the world.